Viewers, welcome back to Rise and Shine Your Life here on Tobago Channel 5. At this time, we're chatting with Mr. Martin George, attorney at law, and our focus this morning, yes, is on a little bit on the crime situation here in Tobago, but as well the issue here of salaries and allowances. Interesting enough. Good morning and welcome.
Yeah, hi, good morning to you both, and good morning to Tobago and all the viewers in the wider diaspora, regardless of the incidents which occurred over the weekend. And certainly we send out our condolences to the family, friends, relatives of the couple, who passed away over the weekend. But what I would like to say to Tobago is that we have to start taking responsibility for what happens in Tobago. And this has to begin at all levels. It has to begin from the very top, in the sense that we have to understand that this is something that hurts all of us. It's something that we don't wish to happen. So it comes with a process of education, information. I have arrangements with my board of Crime Stoppers. We're going to have discussions to try to have a special intervention in Tobago later this week. All right, and of course this has to be done in consultation with Mr. London from the THA, because I am the THA's representative on the Crime Stoppers board. So I want to do that, because in other words, if we get persons sensitized to the idea that, look, you can call in information anonymously, nobody knows your name or anything of the sort, and you can also get a reward for it. We offer rewards up to $10,000, and in an extreme case we offer a reward of $100,000. If you recall, in the Mr. Mount Pleasant scenario, yes, we did intervene. I spoke with Mr. London and we made an immediate intervention. There were results. As a result of that, somebody was brought before the courts. So it's a system that does work, and I certainly am offering it to Tobago this morning as something that I will personally take responsibility to ensure that we have some intervention, certainly during the course of this week, to try to sensitize the public to call in with information so we can get this matter resolved quickly. We don't wish to have it lingering on as an unsolved murder.
All right. Now, with regards, I mean, you said that Tobago, we all need to take responsibility for what happens in Tobago. Is it that you sometimes feel that we do not take responsibility?
I certainly think so. I certainly think so, in the sense that we need to understand, if you look at how some of the other Caribbean countries, and particularly places that are tourism focused, how they treat with such issues, they give priority to any scenario involving visitors. So the visitors always feel a sense of assurance that the police, first of all, respond. I heard this morning on another television station an interview with Mr. Green, the husband who was involved in the attack some years ago in Tobago, and he is extremely bitter. And one of the things he said is he is still blaming the police force and the response that he received. So we need to understand that our approach can make a world of difference. In other words, I think people are sensible enough around the world to recognize that, look, crime is not something isolated to Tobago. Crime is something that happens everywhere. You have had attacks on the London subway with bombings. You have had years ago where the two teenage boys took the 6-year-old boy in London and murdered him for no apparent reason when they were walking along the train tracks, if you recall. So in other words, let's not take things out of context to make it sound as if, well, it's only in Tobago, only in the Caribbean, right? Crime happens everywhere. Look at what happened in Kenya over the weekend, where, innocent persons traveling on a bus, then look at what happened in the mall in Nairobi, where one of our own citizens, a brilliant Island Scholar winner, was murdered as part of that attack. So this is something that happens everywhere. In the USA, every week you have some killing in a school or in a post office or in a workplace where somebody takes out a handgun and shoots down their co-workers, that kind of thing. So let us not allow ourselves to be stigmatized unfairly. And I have made the point repeatedly that I have a difficulty with some of the foreign travel advisories which come out by these diplomatic missions, whereby the minute something happens in Tobago, one isolated incident, then they issue this broad brush travel advisory, making it seem as if this is this most violent place. When you look at the statistics, at least, and divorce in Tobago from Trinidad for the purpose of these statistics, it's bad, but it's certainly not as horrendous as it is in Trinidad. So we need to make that difference. We need to make that differentiation. But at the same time, we also need to start taking responsibility to educate our people to understand that, look, a tourist is not somebody who comes here as a victim. And when I say a victim, either a victim of a taxi driver who might try to overcharge them, or somebody who's selling meals at a lunch counter.
Right.
You see a tourist, you want to raise the price or jack up the price, or tell them it's in US, or tell them, that's not the purpose of a tourist. A tourist is someone who comes, and if you get them to spend their money, then that helps to build your economy. It's good for all of us. So, as I have said before, and I want all of us to really appreciate what tourism is. Tourism is a way of pleasantly and happily separating a visitor from their money so that they're happy to do it all over again. So in other words, you must make the enjoyment of that experience so pleasurable and fulfilling that they are happy to spend their money at your places in Tobago. They're happy with the service. They're greeted by a smile. They're treated nicely. And let me tell you something. Even if someone doesn't purchase something from you, treat them nicely still. We have a terrible, terrible attitude when it comes to that if they don't buy, you want to, you make up your face, you throw words at them. That's not the way you treat any customer. Mm-hmm. Whether it's even a Tobagonian like yourself or a Trinidadian or a visitor from abroad, you don't treat any customer that way. Any customer who comes to your place, whether they purchase or they don't purchase, you treat them nicely, you treat them with courtesy. And if you travel around the world, you'd recognize this is one of the fundamentals of tourism. So that's why I tell you, we need to start taking responsibility, because I am not sure that message has reached down to everybody at all levels, that we understand that, look, the same person I treat nicely, they may not buy from me, but because they've been treated so well, they may go by you next door and buy from you. Okay. You then may now make some purchase that benefits me. So at the end of the day, all of us rise, all of us benefit from it. So we need to change that attitude and approach. I've seen many people who have complained, particularly if something happens, particularly visitors, the treatment they get at the police station is not good. It's not good at all.
And I'm glad that you mentioned that. I think the second week of December, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service is supposed to be hosting their first law enforcement conference.
Okay.
All right. The theme is critical issues facing law enforcement in contemporary Anglophone Caribbean. So it's just interesting that all of this is happening, and that conference is coming up.
Okay. Well, and I mean, I hope they address issues such as this, because at the end of the day, these are the things that make the difference. Mr. Green was very specific this morning. He said the treatment by the police service is one of the main reasons. I mean, the man is still very, very bitter. And you can understand why someone might feel that way, because if you gave them a proper response, they may not even have the kind of anger. But he and his wife apparently are on a mission now. They are going everywhere to try to paint Tobago bad, which is not good for us. And at the end of the day, okay, maybe they are going overboard, and I think they are, but you understand where it could have possibly been stopped or ameliorated from the start if we gave a proper response. And that understanding that, look, if you are a visitor, trust me, you are hoping that people will look out for you in the place where you're going, and not seek to take advantage of you because of the fact that you're a visitor.
Okay, Mr. George. So in this case, in this scenario, what do you think our law enforcement services should do?
Okay, I can give you an example. In the United Kingdom, they have a system whereby if someone is a victim of a crime such as this, they have a support unit, a victims support unit. So separate and apart from the investigative unit, there's a victims support unit. I would like to make this call today to the Commissioner of Police. Can you please, for Tobago, I'm not worrying about Trinidad right now. This is a Tobago issue we're dealing with here. For Tobago, can you set up a victims support unit in Tobago at Scarborough Police Station, whereby you are particularly focused on dealing with the victims of crime, not just foreigners. This is applicable to all persons who come and use your services as victims. The Victim Support Unit, what it does, they have protocols whereby they set up. So, okay, on the first day that you've made your report, by the afternoon, you're getting a phone call. They've given you an update. So this is not a situation where, in the typical thing, we have to keep going back to the police station. What is happening with my matter? I made a report. Oh, you made a report? When? You have anything to show? You know, and that's the response you get in the police service. And I'm not asking you this. You know, I have had calls to make reports, and I've been like flabbergasted.
So sometimes it scares you away from.
I feel intimidated sometimes by the responses you get. You look at it and you say, but if this is what I am getting, what does the ordinary citizen who, you know, may not have any insight into this, how are they treated? It is scary, I am telling you. And we need to change that approach. The Victim Support Unit, what they do, apart from that, so by the afternoon they're calling you, they're giving you an update and stuff like that. They then advise you, okay, we have counseling services, all right? Do you wish to come in? We'll fix an appointment now. You can see a psychologist. Are there any of your family members who were traumatized also, who need that kind of, you know, then they ask you even things like, okay, if you're a visitor, do you have money to be able to think, they try to make them, I mean, not that they're going to be handing out money, but at least if they can make a phone call to a relative or make some, that's the kind of thing. If you give people that service, I tell you, visitors, if anything happens, they will still say, hey, listen, something bad happened, but you know what? Those people in Tobago, they're nice too bad. If you know well they treated me after the incident. And they will go back singing our praises for Tobago. And we are so silly, we don't even understand that these are simple things that we can put in place to ensure that that is improved.
The Kent family of Speyside is still awaiting some word on their on the death of Dane Kent earlier this year. The Richardson John family is still awaiting word for almost 5 years on the murder of Denise John. Her body was found in the Lowlands area.
Right. Yes.
To date, the police have still not held anyone in connection with that murder or those murders. There's been no word. Family members still have to be calling to find out what is happening.
And you should not be having to do that. The Victim Support Unit is supposed to take control of that. They're the ones who, and I'll tell you further, in the UK, if there's any progress in the matter, say for instance, if someone is arrested, they call you, they say, well, okay, look, you know, Mr. George, this is the situation today, officer so he went out, this person was arrested, right? We are arranging for an ID parade or whatever, right? We will contact you further to let you know. And then they ask, are you okay? How are you? Listen, that is a simple thing we can put in place by next week, if you understand me. It does not take too much. Even if the police service isn't taking the initiative, then let the THA set up a victim support unit.
But
and as I say, not just for foreigners, it must also apply to Tobagonians, because
but it almost feels, Mr. George,
are
that
treated badly.
Yes, but you have to be a certain Tobagonian of a certain caliber to have that type of response or that type of importance placed on your case.
Is not what it should be. So all Tobagonians, regardless of whatever level, you must be able to get that support and that service, and I'm calling for that to be set up today. So if we can take one lesson out of this tragedy, because you see, the way I look at life, bad things happen, but we must not dwell on the bad things. We must see from that, let's see what good can come out of it. So if Tobago out of this can set up and have a fully effective and functional victims support unit, then I think this can turn out to be something that going forward, that victim support unit will be a blessing for Tobago.
All right. Okay, so I wanted us to touch on another issue here, because I mean, it's not very often that we have you on set with us. With regards to salaries and allowances, let's talk a little bit here about President Carmona, that the $28,000 housing allowance, whilst utilizing a fully funded state housing or state accommodation. Your thoughts on that? We have not been able to chat
as you started off mentioning salaries and allowances, I thought you were making a pitch for me to speak to the bosses here, you know. Which I still do.
Not a bad idea.
Yes. All right. Now, the thing is, I'm not quite sure why this matter has engaged so much debate, which I think has led to obfuscation rather than elucidation of the issues. It's very simple, it's very clear. If you are in receipt of government housing, you cannot be in receipt of a government housing allowance for housing. It's just as simple as that. There is absolutely no magic to it, there's no mystery, and you know, quite frankly, I think that the persons who are responsible ought to step forth and say, hey, listen, it was a mistake, because there's no other way around it. All the shenanigans about whether the housing is suitable or, you know, whether it's super grade housing, those are irrelevant, because at the point of accepting the housing, those issues would have arisen then. So in other words, if it was not suitable, it's not something you would have accepted.
But should the president at this point in time repay?
Well, that I would think would be a moral, ethical decision that would have to occupy his attention if it is put to him. At the end of the day, if it's money that has been received, and you see, particularly given the fact that you have been calling on citizens to aspire to a higher standard, I think it would be a tremendous and phenomenal example to lead by if that is done. But at the end of the day, I would imagine it's a decision for him to take. But I think it would redound to his credit and to his benefit for the nation generally if a wonderful example such as that is set.
But doesn't this call into a